Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone joining us for this virtual session as part of the ISG Future Workplace Summit. My name is Wil Harris. I'm the Head of Intelligent Automation here in Northern Europe for ISG, and I'm going to be speaking to you today about how emerging technologies are going to be impacting the workplace of the future, and asking, are we, is anyone ready for what the workplace of 2025 is going to be like? So firstly, let me start with a bit of a story, because I think it really brings home how real this subject has become, certainly in recent weeks. I don't just mean because of coronavirus, but I also mean as we step through the end of Q1 of 2020, we're starting to see a lot of organizations complete on their 2020 vision and their 2020 strategies that they've been working on over the past decade. I'll get to that a little bit later about how important it can be or has been, but think to yourself, who in this room, or this virtual room, who on this session has not previously been part of a 2020 vision project within their organizations? It's a really key thing for us to consider as we walk through this. So anyway, I'll start with a bit of a story. A few nights ago, my wife and I were outside. We went out in the evening to watch the Lyrid meteor shower. Now this display is caused as Earth passes through the debris of an ancient comet. These showers have happened for at least the last 2,600 years. We anticipate they're going to happen for millennia to come. However, why the story of going through a tale of an ancient comet to watch some shooting stars as part of their Future Workplace Summit is actually on that dark night we also observed a new scientific marvel. We watched 60 or so of Elon Musk's Starling Satellites pass overhead. And it got me thinking actually how much this world is changing and how much technology has been the catalyst for this change. If you had said to a young Will, who wanted nothing more, by the way, than to be a fast jet pilot in the Royal Air Force, alas, some things never come to bear, that he'd be here in the midst of a global lockdown due to a new virus that's sweeping across the planet, watching satellites that have been launched into space by an eccentric billionaire, so that from anywhere on the planet, I can share high resolution video, I can share documents, I can share photos, I can access Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, Snapchat to anywhere else on the planet, middle of the Pacific Ocean to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I'd think that you'd been reading too many science fiction novels. I mean, even 10 years ago, it was beyond the wildest of dreams that we were going to have 100 megabit super high speed broadband available when you were thousands of miles away from another landmass. But here we are. That is starting to happen. If these satellites, if Starlink is successful, it will have fundamentally changed the way that we as a planet communicate, and in doing so will have changed a number of people's workplaces. Gone are the days where high-speed internet, or indeed any connection to the internet, is the saving grace of multi-billion-dollar companies with oil rigs and satellite uplinks, or highly complicated communication equipment aboard larger vessels. No, this is the two-person diving company who can take imagery that has been created or can take mapping data that has been created in order to change their plans at last minute because the water is slightly different where they turn up, or there's too many people in that particular dive location, without having to go back and do a bunch of replanning, where fishermen can take live meteorological data and predict around fish migration and understand how the weather real time, not just from pre-planned and not just the small data feed you'd get from some MET capabilities, but real time, full data provided to them even if they're on far off shipping expedition, far off fishing expedition. It will change the world. Now, might not mean a lot to some of us on this call. I can't see there being many fishermen or many dive instructors on here, but it does really bring me to the first point on how these emerging technologies are creating the workplace of the future. If you give me a minute to say something actually about what do I think the workplace of the future is going to look like? Well, a lot like this actually. Virtual rooms, hoodies instead of sharp suits. I do miss having mine on for what it's worth. People using collaboration platforms, people getting used to talking to a camera and seeing their friends and colleagues' faces on a screen. I predict, will be doing much, much more of this as we progress through the current challenges we face and as we return to the new future, or whatever we consider to be normal in our future society. Imagine this COVID-19 crisis had actually happened in 2006 or 2008. Trying to continue working probably on dial-up internet, if you had internet at all. Not a lot, well, about half of the population I think were on the internet at the time. Staring into the green screen of our Nokia 3310s, whilst we already try and operate in a highly digital world. Even now, we've been lucky to get through these strategies and get to this highly digital world. Even some of the slowest adopters are being forced to massively increase their investments just to survive. We don't want to be the people sat here with our Nokia 3310s, with our dial-up internet, if this crisis had happened. And it sharpened the focus to many organizations to ensure they're ready for when, if the next one happens. I predict that business will never be the same again. We have just had that critical event that has driven required change, type of change that one never truly comes back from. And I really do believe we're building our new future. The 2020 strategies I mentioned earlier, they're really what have made a lot of this possible. If we hadn't gone through strategizing and planning to have a more remote workforce, bringing in new technologies, faster ways of communicating data, we would have found ourselves in very challenging situation. This is coupled with some research insight we have as ISG that we've recently published earlier in this year that's suggesting that CFOs are actually going to be increasing investment in digital transformation and digital technology through H2 of 2020. There is a tidal wave coming, that's for sure. And I, for one, want to ensure that I and my clients and as many people who will listen as possible are riding that tidal wave rather than being damaged by it. In my own clients, I'm seeing disruption happen everywhere, positive disruption happen everywhere. Changes that would have been considered too disruptive or too politically unpalatable are now being allowed to go ahead because business is starting to understand the real power of digital transformation and emerging technologies and seeing that it isn't just some marketing spin. So what I want to share over the next 5-10 minutes or so is really a few insights. So if we look at the trends in big business, I predict there will be 3 major trends in big business over the next 5 years. These are the ones to watch out for. So we've already seen the adoption of many technologies in the past few years. Arguably, none of them have been more high profile than automation and RPA. Everyone has had a go at RPA. Everyone wants to buy a robot. We are seeing some challenges in the amount of benefit that's coming out of that. Some people have very limited results. Others are being extremely successful by it. So where firms have put this at a board level priority, we're seeing massive benefits derived from the adoption of automation. Now it's very specific that I use the term automation, not RPA. RPA certainly has its benefits, but the bottom-up approach of acquire an RPA capability and find where to use it is not dissimilar to buying a new hammer and running around and trying to find some nails to hit with it. What we need to invoke here, and what I predict will happen over the next 5 years as this technology matures, is it really becomes a board level incentive. And we stop being the hammer looking for nails and we start looking at fundamental operating change, digital backbone, digitization of our businesses, and automation becomes an arrow in the quiver rather than a quiver itself. In particular, I see businesses moving beyond typical measurements of hours back to the business or FTE returned and starting to focus on real tangible impacts to the bottom line and top line. We see it in lots of clients that they've saved 10,000 hours, but we're not seeing that impact their cost base, positively impact their cost base, or be allowed to assist the acceleration of their top line. I predict that we will see a lot more movement towards augmenting the human capability through machine learning and AI, as well as a real focus on data governance and big data analytics, rather than the simple as-is automation we're seeing at the moment. We'll move away from FTE displacement, and this will really start being measured on the ability to critically impact core business processes and fundamentally change how we operate with our clients. Those changes are going to make huge impact to the future workplace, as it becomes commonplace to work alongside digital workers and have augmented capabilities, human augmented capabilities deployed in many, many industries. Secondly, in big business, I believe that we're going to see a big uptick in wearable technology. Lots of people have an iWatch or a Garmin or something they wear, and I believe the data generated by this is going to start to become of more and more interest to big business, leading them to want employees to be able to use wearable tech. At the moment, it's quite big in some high-end tech firms. Lots of software houses will have a bracelet or a ring or something that allow you to pay for food at the canteen. It'll have your security credentials on, so it'll let you through the correct doors. Pretty cool, not world-changing. Whereas in other industries, it really has made such a critical difference. And we're seeing in those industries very high percentage of voluntary uptake. What we get to is where there is a tangible trade-off, an equitable trade-off, and I will do this for you in order for achieving something for myself. Employees are much more willing to uptake. Let's take two examples. In the mining industry, it allows the tracking of real time of where people are in mines, meaning if there is a collapse, the wearable technology will allow health and will allow safety and rescue people to get to them in much quicker time. We'll know who needs helping first, and who has managed to escape successfully. In the energy industry, we already see wearable technology. We've seen it since the 1960s. People wearing radiation sensitive films on their lab coats so they know if they've had exposure to the radiation in nuclear reactors. What I predict we will see in this technology on the market that now allows us to track that in real time through the connected capability of wearable devices. The majority of wearables out there at the moment allow us to react faster to an error going wrong, or to capture data to then interrogate it at a later date. I predict that the increasing interest in wearable technology will actually allow us to be proactive and start being preventative rather than curing challenges. We can stop them from happening up front because of our ability to extract and interrogate so much data in real time. Thirdly, in big business, I believe that facial identification is going to be a major technology of this decade. We all know that it's been adapted heavily in China. We know it's been great with some very large concerns about the data infringement, privacy infringement that we are very much more sensitive to in our part of the world, in Northern Europe. But I still predict that this is a massively interesting technology. In China, for instance, you can pay for your groceries with your face. You can pay for your Starbucks with your face. We're seeing facial recognition technology more and more. iPhones and Samsung phones and all of the leading hardware manufacturers now in the cell phone industry have facial recognition capability, many of which allowing you to make payment. As this technology increases, I believe it will either be, and I hope it will be adopted wildly, and we will see such advent come from facial recognition technology, or the government will put a stop to research in this area, and it might then delay out until the latter half of this decade. Anyway, small and medium enterprises. So these are the guys who I think are going to make the real difference to the world. So there's the big businesses have plenty of money to spend, but a lot of bureaucracy and being able to spend it. These smaller businesses, anything up to, let's say, 1.5 to 2 billion in revenue per year, still massive businesses in some rights, but really around that 200 to 500 million per annum revenue sort of space are really where I think a lot of this is going to come into play. They're large enough to have the buying power to experiment with some new technologies, and they're small enough to maneuver their organizations quickly when they find something that's really of interest. The key to their success is going to be having very brave leaders who are not worried about how the future workplace is going to end up, but just experience the journey of it transforming from where it was to where it will be. I think we'll see much more adoption of remote working, much more cloud access, a much more focus on cyber security, info security, and data governance and data security, as well as seeing some of these more futuristic or sci-fi technologies being implemented. I'd love to see the day when we can have holographic meetings, for instance, and I don't actually think that's as far away as many people might consider. The other thing, when we get a bit more real, is that many technologies are now getting to a maturity level where their affordability is much stronger. The price point has come down quite significantly. So we'll start seeing these small, medium enterprises investing in enterprise-wide digital technology programs. They also have the benefit of being a fast follower rather than a true pioneer with some of this, so can learn from the mistakes of much larger organizations and leverage the knowledge of many of the consultants on the market. I predict that their innovation and research and development capabilities will likely receive more funding off the back of the challenges we're currently facing, and disaster recovery and business continuity will become much, much more important in the years to come. All of this is going to fundamentally change how leadership interact with their employees and how their employees operate their day-to-day business. The key macro trends, I believe, across all industries will be the true adoption of AI and machine learning, the maximizing of the Internet of Things and connectability, connected devices, 5G, the ability to have hyper-fast broadband, aside from what Elon's doing with his satellites, pretty much anywhere. I think this is going to change the way that we can use data and will have profound impact on the future. Two things that I'm really excited about when they come together. So the commercialization of quantum computing. We have quantum computers now that work, but they're not commercially viable. As quantum becomes commercially viable, we're going to have at our fingertips such power to really accelerate some of the technologies that we're looking at now. Finally, I believe there'll be a rapid adoption of augmented and virtual reality. Many people are talking about this, but I think current events really cement the importance of being able to work remotely. From training employees in virtual environments to allowing customers to experience goods through augmented reality. Does this sofa fit in my room? Point my phone at the screen. So there's ways of doing it at the moment, but it will become much, much more competent in years to come, particularly combining the commercialization of quantum computing and the desire to have augmented and virtual realities. So my prime advice then for anyone who's a leader in this space, CIOs, CTOs, COOs, really is to keep an eye on those macro technology trends. From there, understand how they'll impact your business and then spend some time assessing their potential. All of these will change how you interact with your employees and how your employees project your organization to your customers. So there are three questions I would ask myself when I'm looking at a new technology. The third, in my opinion, being the most important. So the first one, how can we make more money by using this technology? Second one, how can this technology save me money in my cost of operations? And thirdly, how can this technology help me in a competitive landscape, specifically by supporting my employees in their ability to service my customers in the fastest and most professional manner possible? So what I would say is the new future is coming, the new normal is now, and as leaders in the industry, it's down to us to decide if we're going to get pushed ahead by this wave and we're really going to drive the digital agenda throughout our firms, or if we're going to get left behind by those brave enough to be taking on the challenges. So there it is. Technology is already impacting our workplace. It will continue to do so at a really rapid rate of knots, and we will see much more adoption of remote working, an increase in the Internet of Things, wearable technology, advanced communications, the advent of true AI, although I would say probably not general AI. I think that's quite a long time out as of yet. So thanks for taking some time to listen to me. If anyone has any questions, please fire them over. I'll be happy to take a look. Have a great day all.